Okay, so let's finish up lesson 11.10 and our notes for the year with a little bit of problem solving. Number 1 says 1/8 of the square of a number is 3. Find the number. So I'm going to let x equal the number. 1/8 is a fraction. Of means multiplication. The square of a number, the square means the square root. If it said 1/8 squared, that would be when you square the number. This is taking the square root of a number. Our number is x, is 3. So we have 1/8 times the square root of x equals 3. So we want to solve this, but before we can isolate x by itself, first we're going to have to multiply both sides by 8. And we get the square root of x equals 24. To undo something that is has square root, we square it. So we're going to square 24. And that happens to be 576. So the number is 576. And that's the answer to that one. The radius r of a cylinder is related to its volume v and its height h by the formula r equals the square root of volume divided by pi times height. Find the volume of a cylinder whose radius is 15 centimeters and whose height is 36 centimeters. Express your answer in terms of pi. Okay, so we'll leave it in terms of pi. So basically, we're using this formula and we're just going to plug in what we were given. The radius is 15, so we put that in for r. The height is 36, so we have 36 pi. Okay, we want to solve in terms of v. Okay, because it says find the volume. So we're going to square the right side to undo the radical, and we're going to square the left side. 15 squared is 225 equals v over 36 times pi. We're going to solve in terms of pi. So to do that, I'm going to not solve in terms of pi, we're going to solve in terms of volume. So I'm going to multiply by 36 pi to get volume by itself. And when I do that, I end up with 225 times 36, which is 8100 pi equals volume. And I don't think it did give us centimeters. So 8100 pi centimeters equals volume. And that's all you do for that one. Okay, let's look at the next one. The period of a pendulum T is the amount of time in seconds it takes the pendulum to make a complete swing back and forth. The period is determined by the formula T equals 2 pi times the square root of L, that's a fancy L, divided by 9 8/10, where L is the length of the pendulum in meters. Find the length of a pendulum with a period of 8 seconds. Give your answer to the nearest tenths. And this one does say use 3.14 to solve for pi. So obviously this would be one that you would definitely use a calculator for. So we know our time, so let's write our formula first. That's my fancy L. So time is 8 seconds equals 2 pi times the square root of L divided by 9 8/10. Okay, so we got to get the radical by itself, so I'm going to divide both sides by 2 pi. When I do that, I end up with 8 divided by 2 is 4 pi equals, the 2 pi is gone, the square root of that length divided by 9 8/10. To undo the radical, I'm going to square both sides. And when I square 4, I get, I'm going to come up here, 16. I get 16. I'm sorry. This should be 4 over pi. not 4 pi. I get 16. I'm squaring that. And I get pi squared. There we go. Equals the squaring of a square root gives us L over 9 8/10. Okay? And so find the length. So it's wanting us to find the length. So to find the length of this, we can first multiply by 9 8/10 to both sides. Okay, and at this point, you're going to be using your calculator. So you're going to have 9 8/10 times 16 over 3.14 squared. I would plug that into your calculator just like that. And it says to give your answer to the nearest tenth. When you plug that in, you want to double check, but you should get 15 9/10 meters as your length. Okay, that took that away. Oh, here's our last type. We're going to solve the system of equations. Okay, so we have 3 times the square root of a plus 5 times the square root of b equals 31. 5 plus the square root of a minus 5 times the square root of b equals 15. So I would say the best way to solve this is by elimination, and I can eliminate my b by adding these, because 5 times the square root of b minus 5 times the square root of b, that's 0. So this gives us 8 times the square root of a equals 16. Again, we want to isolate our radical by dividing by 8. We get the square root of a equals 2. To undo our square root, we'll square both sides, and we get a equals 4. So now we have to go and solve for b. So I'm going to take my first equation. I'm going to have 3 times the square root of 4 plus 5 times the square root of b equals 31. Square root of 4 is 2, so this becomes 3 times 2 plus 5 times the square root of b equals 31, or 6 plus 5 times the square root of b equals 31. I'm going to subtract 6, and I get 5 times the square root of b equals 25. I'm going to divide by 5, and I get the square root of b equals 5. I'm going to go ahead and square to get rid of the radical on b, and I get b equals 25. So my solution is a is 4 and b is 25. And that is it for our class notes for the year. As always, reach out to me by messaging if I can help you with any of these problems. Your last assignment is lesson 11.10, and of course there's a review sheet that's been posted for you to work on as well before the test. All right, it's been great this year. I'm going to miss y'all.